A massive
Easy
Apache
now,
patrol
almost done.
surrounded his
It
house
feels better.
for the
Is it
favor he
broken?
did to their daughters.
Just a sprain, she'll be fine.
Jeb Callahan lived alone in a rough wooden cabin on the valley's edge, spending his days hunting, repairing tools, and maintaining a quiet life free from conflict. That life shifted the moment he found two young Apache girls near the creek, injured, frightened, and unable to walk properly. Their ponies had bolted, one girl's ankle twisted, the other bruised and weak. Jeb hesitated only a moment before lifting them into his cabin, tending their wounds with salves he had learned to make from old trappers, giving them food and helping them regain their strength. They barely spoke his language, yet their eyes showed trust as he fixed one's torn moccasin and reassured the other with careful gestures. When they recovered enough to travel, they left quietly, but one paused and pressed her hand over his heart in a gesture he didn't understand, though it stayed with him. Days passed, and Jeb thought the matter finished until a low rumble trembled through the valley. When he stepped outside, he saw an enormous Apache patrol cresting the ridge, hundreds of riders in perfect formation. They rode with authority, surrounding his cabin until there was no escape. Spears raised, horses steady. Jeb's instincts told him to remain still, though his hand hovered near his pistol purely from habit, knowing resistance meant nothing against such overwhelming numbers. A tall Apache chief dismounted and approached him, wearing feathers and a bone necklace that marked high rank. Expecting punishment for interfering in tribal matters, Jeb braced himself, but the chief lifted a hand in peace, speaking first in his own tongue, then in broken English. The chief explained that the girls Jeb helped were nieces of a respected elder, and that word of his kindness had spread quickly among their people. Protecting the young carried deep meaning, and a man who aided them without seeking reward was seen as honorable. The riders around them remained still, watching closely, while the chief's voice carried respect rather than threat. He told Jeb that the patrol had come not to harm him, but to acknowledge what he had done, a gesture rare for someone outside their tribe. Jeb listened, bewildered, as the chief spoke of an old principle within their culture. Honor must be answered with honor. The girls had described how he treated them gently, asked for nothing in return, and stayed by their side until they could walk again. To the Apache, this spoke of his spirit more than any words could. The chief gestured to the hundreds of gathered riders, explaining that their presence was a tribute. They believed no good deed should go without recognition, especially from their warriors. Jeb's breath caught as he realized the gravity of the moment. What he had done from simple decency had been interpreted as a deed worthy of a ceremonial response. Then the chief revealed there was more. Scouts had reported raiders moving near Apache territory, the kind known to strike isolated ranchers. They feared that Jeb, living alone, might be targeted. Because he had protected their own, they had come to protect him before danger arrived. Jeb felt a strange mixture of surprise and humility as the chief extended his arm in a warrior's greeting. When Jeb grasped it, the circle of riders let out a resonant chant that rolled across the valley, a sound that echoed with pride and unity. It was not the noise of threat, but of acknowledgement. Standing at his doorway, surrounded by riders stretching farther than he could count, Jeb understood that his life had changed in ways he never expected. He had acted without thought of reward, yet the Apache stood before him offering something greater than thanks. They had come to place him under their protection, forming a bond forged from compassion freely given. As the chief released his arm, Jeb realized he was no longer just a solitary rancher on forgotten land. He had become part of something larger, woven into the honor of a people who repaid loyalty with loyalty and remembered every kindness shown to their own. The valley remained still after the chant faded, vibrating with the meaning behind it. As the Apache chief stepped aside and a respected elder rode forward on a paint stallion, wrapped in a patterned blanket, his presence commanded quiet, even among the large patrol. A translator approached to interpret his words, explaining that gratitude, in their culture, required more than simple thanks. It demanded an act of recognition. The girls Jeb had helped belonged to a family of importance, and the elder said their return had stirred deep appreciation across multiple camps. He extended a carved wooden token, engraved with tribal markings that symbolized protection, telling Jeb that outsiders rarely earned such recognition. Jeb accepted it reverently, slipping it inside his vest as the elder spoke again, mentioning how the girls described his gentle care, the way he asked for nothing, and how he treated them with respect. To their people, a man's true character was revealed in moments where no one watched. As the elder retreated, the chief returned, explaining that the patrol's presence served a dual purpose: tribute and defense. Scouts had tracked a band of raiders moving toward the valley, men ruthless enough to attack lone settlers. In Apache eyes, failing to protect Jeb after he had aided their young would be dishonorable. A group of warriors dismounted, placing leather-wrapped bundles at Jeb's feet. Inside were supplies, dried meat, maize, tools, furs, and a finely crafted spear etched with symbolic patterns. These were not mere gifts, but assurances that he would not face hardship alone. Before Jeb could process everything, a distant shout came from the ridge as a scout signaled danger. The chief's expression hardened, and within seconds the patrol shifted into battle-ready formation. Horses tightened into disciplined ranks, spears angled forward, riders positioning themselves with swift precision.
Jeb
Stepped off his porch, volunteering to stand with them. And though the chief initially told him to remain behind the lines, he recognized Jeb's resolve and allowed him to take a place where he could support without being exposed. Moments later, the raiders burst from the trees, expecting an undefended ranch. Instead, they met a force they could not match. The Apache moved with unity, surrounding the raiders, cutting off their escape, and striking with well-coordinated maneuvers. Jeb steadied his rifle, firing only when needed, respecting the chief's orders and acting with caution. Within minutes, the raiders scattered, overwhelmed and defeated. The Apache did not shout or celebrate. They returned to calm formation, as though they had simply completed a necessary duty. The chief rode toward Jeb and told him the raiders would not return. Then he leaned in and spoke words Jeb would never forget. "Your kindness brought this shield to your door." The patrol began to withdraw, their silhouettes moving in disciplined waves across the valley. Before leaving, the chief reminded him that watchers would remain in the distant ridges not to intrude, but to ensure no unseen threat approached again. Jeb watched as hundreds of riders departed, their loyalty bound not by obligation, but by mutual respect. When he placed his hand over the carved token inside his vest, he felt the weight of the bond he had earned. He had acted on instinct, offering help to two frightened strangers. But that simple decision had forged a connection deeper than he could have imagined. From that day forward, the valley no longer felt empty. Jeb sensed the unseen guardians who kept silent watch over him, honoring the man who treated their daughters with compassion. And though he returned to his quiet life, he carried a new certainty in his heart, that even a single act of kindness could echo far enough to